All right, welcome to the Sharpening Iron Show. I'm your man, Big Jack. This is where we prove we are stronger together. That if each one would reach one, we can all grow and glow. And today is another exciting episode of the show. We know the last episode we were talking about Masters Week, and I was sitting here watching the Masters, and it's almost over. I thought it was going to be over, but I just found out they're just going into a playoff. So that's just exciting in itself because they're going to have a playoff, at least one or two whole playoffs, and I believe it's down to Rose and McIlroy for the winner of the Masters for this year. But hey, that's here nor there because we talked about how I got to go to the Masters back in 2019, so I'm still excited about just watching the Masters when they come on. But today we got a special guest on, and I'm looking forward to bringing this guest to the stage and so we can have a deeper conversation with her. She is a very important person in my life, only because we are related, and we'll talk more about that when she come on the stage. But let's do a quick clip, and then we'll bring her on the stage. Give me 1 second.
Often help people to understand that things are in a continuum. The way that we change, right? So what I might have been willing to deal with at work when I was 25, or even what my dream job was at 25, is going to look different at 35. And so I'm constantly changing. So I also have to recognize that I'm not changing in a vacuum. Where I work is going to be constantly changing and on that same evolution.
All right, welcome to the show, Dr. Jessica Jackson. How you doing?
Hello, I'm doing okay. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine, and thank you for coming on the Iron Sharpening Iron Show. The motto here is where we prove we are stronger together. That if each one would just reach one, we can all grow and glow. Just to give you a little background about the show, we're mostly all content creators. A lot of people that's in here are YouTube content creators. So we are live right now on YouTube. We're live on Facebook, and then I'll take these clips and put them on Instagram and TikTok, and we'll just spread it around. But it's a way to one only just grow the channel, but grow what we're all about. And I'm super excited about having you on the show with me today. So thank you for being a guest on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, and another thing that we would do, so people will be commenting in the chat. I'm not sure if you can see the comments that's coming in now, and we'll stop and acknowledge the people that are come in and say, hey, hello to them. So right now I'm seeing that Niecy Jackson's in the house. So Niecy Jackson there, Sharon Jackson's in the house, and saying good evening, Big Jack and Dr. Jackson. So that's cool. And we got Phil Duh in the house, and then there's a couple other people, Mary and Princess Blog, and then Chris Horde, I believe, mental health care and more is in the house. So that's good. So it looked like we're here. We're here and we're live, and I'm excited to have you here today. So, Dr. Jackson, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am a licensed psychologist. I am based in Houston, Texas, but I'm from Maryland originally. And I have my own practice, my own company, which is Therapies for Everyone Psychological and Consultation Services. So I provide therapy, but I also do consulting with digital mental health startups and health technology. So I do a lot of consulting and speaking through that. And then I am also the VP of Alliance Development for Mental Health America.
Oh wow. Okay. All right. So you're from Maryland, but
Mm-hmm.
you're now in Houston, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. And okay. And so I've had a lot of different doctors on the show, but
Mm-hmm.
you said psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So we're going to get into that because I wanted to see what made you get into psychology. And I'm seeing that Karen Jackson is in the house and saying hi, Big and Jessica. I think that's what she's trying to say. So, but with all that, so tell us a little bit about Jessica Jackson before it was a doctor. Jessica Jackson, the 1 to 9 year old Jessica Jackson. Is there anything that you would like to share or could share?
Yeah, I don't know that I have anything to share from 1 to 9. I think in general, I probably had a very unremarkable childhood. So there's nothing that stands out for me from that time period. I think a lot of the things are probably still true. I like to read. So even in elementary school, I was reading Things like Tale of Two Cities and Moby Dick. Like I've always been a reader, even of what I call the great literature. So a lot of the oldies, and I still really enjoy reading. So people always laugh because I'll say I will read anything, including the back of a cereal box. So I do read everything that that comes across my path, and probably was the same as a child.
Okay. All right. So now I know we've had your sister on the stage before.
Mhm.
And so I know you have siblings. So what was it like? You're the oldest of the girls, correct?
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. What was it like being the oldest? Were you the one leading the way, showing them the path, or because y'all close in age? And that was, I think Frederica, when she was on, she said y'all was close in age. So I'm gonna see
Yeah.
it from your point of view. Was it more of a leading the way type thing?
I don't think so. I would agree. That's what I was gonna say. We're only all about like 18 months apart, so I don't. There's not really a big age gap between us, and we're all very different. So I don't know that I was leading the way. I think we all have very individual personalities, which was very much nurtured in our family, and we all do very different things. Even as kids, we were into very different things. So I think because we were so close in age, I don't know that it ever felt like there was somebody leading the way per se. And I don't know that we did a whole lot of like, oh, big sister, little sister, take care of your little sister type of thing because we were so close. It was just like take care of each other, basically.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. That's good. So let's move on to the middle school, high school years. What was that
Mhm.
like as for you? Is that where the psychology world came into play, or you started thinking in that area?
No, I didn't decide that I was even interested. And I think a lot of this is probably still true today. Um, Many people don't talk about mental health. So it wasn't even something I was exposed to until college. So
Mm,
in high school, I don't even know that I knew what I wanted to be, quote unquote, when I grew up. I think the rule was I had to go to college or join the military. I don't know if they would have actually made me join the military, but I only applied to one college. I think, when you're in that age, in your mind, you're like, well, I tried, right? It doesn't make sense. There was no reason I wouldn't have gotten in. I was an honor student. I, did all the things, sports and volunteer work. But at the time in my mind, it was like, okay, if I don't get in, they can't say I didn't try. So I applied to one school, and I got in, and sure enough, they shipped me down to North Carolina. I went to North Carolina A&T, which is a HBCU,
mm.
and probably one of the best decisions I ever made was to go to a HBCU.
Oh wow, okay. So how was that experience as far as the because I know again I'm going back off of a prior interview I had, not with you, but with your sister. And
Mhm.
so coming from that part of Maryland that you were in and the schools that you went to had to be around the same schools. So what
Mhm.
was your experience like with the HBCU coming from it was a Madon, I would say majority white school as your sister said. So did you have that same experience from was it the same schools?
Um, we went to the same schools here for
Okay.
before college, but even though we went to predominantly white schools for high school and things like that, we also were around Black people all the time. So we went to a Black church and we had family, we were around family. So to me, I don't even know that it stood out that much until I went to a Black college. But being at a Black college, to me, one of the reasons, and I encourage everyone, I think the show A Different World did an excellent service to the community by showing people what it's like going to a college because it's the only place, especially for me, where everybody, for the most part, is Black, and you get to see people who are in leadership who would not ordinarily, you wouldn't get to see that. So you're seeing the president of the university who is Black, you're seeing deans who are Black, you're seeing everyone leaders. There isn't another space, and it's almost like having a family. There's people that I went to school with now that we don't even have to talk, but they ask for a favor. I would do it because we knew each other in college, right? When you join a sorority or fraternity, I think it is a huge help because once you do go out into the world, especially for me as a psychologist, I'm what we say first only different. Most of the spaces I am in, I am the only Black person, the only Black woman, right? Even as a psychologist, less than 4% of all psychologists in the US are Black, less than that are women. So in most spaces, there aren't people who look like me. So if I hadn't gone to an HBCU, for me, I think it might have been harder to see myself in some of those positions. And so going to a HBCU just helped me to see what you can be, what you can achieve. Seeing people who look like you who are also different. So also seeing the diaspora of what it means to be Black and what it means to what success can look like. What does it mean to come from different parts of the country? It just was an excellent experience.
Oh wow, that definitely a good way of looking at it. A lot of times it's almost like you go. A lot of people when I've talked to, they say
Mhm,
they go to HBCU because they feel like they owe it to their people. You know,
mhm,
like it's like I got to go and support. You know, but at the same time, you mentioning how that opening your eyes to showing that hey, I fit in this world. I fit in this area. That I'm not the you're not a loner. There are supports out there. There's a
mhm,
people out there that I can go to and I can look to for advice or for mentorship and things like that that I can get from the school. How was it being away from home? Was that like your first time, or I mean, you said you went to Carolina, so North Carolina A&T.
mhm.
So was that a shell shock thing for you, or how was it?
I imagine it was. I don't know that I remember it standing out that much. I think the first semester sucked. And it's a lot of getting used to new food, meeting new people, all of those things. But I think for me, for the most part, very quickly kind of settled in and enjoyed it. I know moving away isn't for everyone. I do encourage it though. I mean, it teaches you a lot about who you are. It helps you to figure out who you are. There isn't someone telling you what to do, what to wear, all of these different things. And so you kind of figured out the people that you gravitate towards. I think it is also, for me, being at a HBCU also just felt very affirming to be around all of these different people. It was very much about mm, not playing into stereotypes, right? Like, and I think that that is what we can see a lot of on TV and different things. But to me, going to HBCU, I had professors who were English literature professors and different things who also listened to rap music. I mean, I remember in college, I took in the English department a class about rap music and like breaking it down and learning iambic pentameter and things like that through rap music. And I think often what you will see outside of spaces like that are people who make judgments. Oh, you listen to this music, it's less professional. I don't feel that way because I also was able to see it. So I'm like, the music that I listen to doesn't take away the knowledge that I have or the work that I do. And so I think for me, being in a space like that, it was just helpful preparing you for the quote unquote real world when you have a job and different things like that. But I don't remember it being a big thing. I mean, I also think it was North Carolina. It wasn't that far. So I went home fairly often, all the holidays, spring breaks, all those different things. So
Okay, well, that's good info. So, was you a first generation college student? Was you the
no,
first in your? Okay,
no. My brother went to college. My parents went to college. My grandmother went to college. So I don't know that I ever thought that I wouldn't go. I think that was also the expectation, but it was never. I don't know. There was ever a question of like, what does it look like, or are you going to be able to go? Because there was a lot of people around me who went. My uncles went to college. So
mm. Okay. So, do you think that helped as far as having people that had that experience to share with you and give you some insight and guidance, or did you seek any insight? I know you said you only applied to one school, so it's like, hey, I'm applying, I'm in. That's all that matter. But did that insight help any, or do you think so?
I don't know that it did. I think there was more of like a culture of you're going to go. But again, the people who I knew that went, I mean, I also went to a high school where everyone was going. So people were talking about it, but the people who went outside of my brother were all much older. So it's not like, I mean, things had definitely changed. So it's not like my parents were able to say, you need to do XYZ because it was very different when they went to college. I think because my brother went before me, they had a better sense of, and even he is 5 years older than me. So it was like, okay, you got to start planning, you got to do these things. But I don't know that they necessarily ever really talked about their college experiences. So I don't know that it was something explicit. It was just a culture of this is what you do. There wasn't a lot of pressure to decide what I wanted to be. It was just like, you need to go because of the experience, which I agree with. I encourage people to go. But it wasn't like they were like, oh, you need to have a major, you need to have these things figured out. I think it was just, yeah, it was a sense of it. I think even there's a yearbook from elementary school, I think when like first grade or something, they ask where you see yourself in 20 or 30 years or something. And I'm like 6 talking about I'm going to be a lawyer, right? Like, so to me, it was always in my mind that you're going to go and do
Right.
something.
Okay. All right. Now, that's very good points right there. So do you believe that now has changed as far as from when you went to school to is someone to say that's graduating high school right now, getting ready to go into college? You think that process has changed from your time?
Absolutely. I mean, I
Okay.
went to college like 20 years ago, so I'm sure that it has changed. I'm sure the process has changed. I'm sure that it's probably more competitive. Um, yeah, I don't know exactly what has changed because I'm not a part of that, but I'm sure that it's changed from that long ago.
Right. Okay. No, it's a very good point. Sometimes we miss out, especially even as parents talking to their kids about school. And even if you went to college, it's like so much has changed from when I went
Mhm,
to school. You're saying 20 years.
mhm,
I know I can say at least 40 years then if that's the
yeah.
case. But yeah, so I can see where there's a huge difference. And then the online version. So would you,
Mhm.
as far as if you had that option, I don't even know if it was an option as much when you went to school to be online. So what do you think? Would you recommend online over in person, or which one would you do?
Um, I've never gone to school online, so I don't know what that experience is like. I do think there is something to be said about going in person. So I know that people's situations and circumstances are different. And I think it also depends on what you major in and what you want to do. There are things that I think impact um, the way that you learn. And I think, I used to teach, so I did teach at the high school in the college level at some point. And I do think there's something to be said about being able to have that connection. I think that is also a lot of, while I think online is convenient and for different reasons and circumstances, sometimes it's necessary, it's also a part of, I think, the Surgeon General, when he issued either last year or the year before, the loneliness epidemic, right? There
Mm,
is something to be said about being able to connect in person, to be in a classroom, to be present. Being online does not allow that. If I'm online, even right now, I could be doing multiple things while I'm talking to you. But if I was directly sitting in front of you, I can't be doing those things because there's nothing in front of me. So
right,
I do think there's something to be said about being in person and
right.
learning.
That's very good points. Very good points. That's I like the you saying that and how you even mentioned that being there because I know at work we're doing a lot more in my job. A lot more meetings are virtual meetings. We don't that happened from 2020 or the COVID era and all. So a lot of stuff we're doing now is just virtual meetings, and it's like, well, it's better in person. But a lot of people feel they get more work done when they're at home and not in the office. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
so
it's different. Meetings, I think, yeah, that's fine to be virtual. I think if you're talking about school and learning, that's different. So for
mm,
working, I absolutely advocate for working at home and working remotely because I don't know that every meeting needs to be in person. But I think when you are learning something, you are trying to understand a concept, that it is helpful because that is also how the brain works. The environment you are in when you learn it is how you remember it. So they kind of call it the state that you're in.
mm,
So if you are in person and you're actively doing and being while you're learning, it will help because most of the stuff you do is not going to be online. So I think learning and working are different, but I encourage remote work when people are able to for working when you're in a job or a career.
okay, all right, a very good, very good point. So we're here on the Iron Sharpening Iron Show. I got my guest, Dr. Jessica Jackson, and we're just getting a little deeper conversation with who is Dr. Jessica Jackson, and it's hard. It doesn't roll off my tongue. It does. I say Dr. J all the time, and that may be the problem. So saying your whole name out, so it's like, and so I'm gonna just say Dr. Jackson if that'll help me. But we're gonna go to a quick commercial break, and then we come back. We'll have a little bit more discussion with Dr. Jackson when we return. So stay tuned.
Get ready for the ultimate live experience. Join us on stage where music, poetry, and comedy collide in a night to remember. Top musicians, spoken word artists, and comedians come together for a unique and unforgettable show. From soulful melodies to side-splitting jokes, this jam-packed event has it all. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride as we bring you the best of the best in this one-of-a-kind performance. Are you ready for the next We Be Jammin' Live?
All right, we're back on the Iron Sharpening Iron Show. This is where I have my guest, Dr. Jessica Jackson, with me, and that was definitely another We Be Jamming live video that went out. We have the last Saturday of every month we do a concert, or we call We Be Jamming live, where we bring different guests on the stage and we just have a good time. So it's the last Saturday of every month. So April 26th will be the next one. So if you're out there and you have that musical talent, or if you're a poet, or if you're a comedian and you want to come on the stage, you're more than welcome, yeah, to join the stage with us, and let's just have some fun on We Be Jamming Live, April 26th. And then all the other one was a shout out video for some of the people that have supported this channel and supported my page, and I support you. So thank you for all you out there. So Dr. Jackson, let's go out and see who's in the chat real quick, and then we'll get a little bit more into the conversation. I see Els Endeavor's in the house, and Desi's there. Thank you for being here. Phil, thank you for being in there. And I'm giving out the blue jackets for those who are that's coming in. So and then Dr. Jackson, if you don't know, the blue jacket means they're the moderators. So we give them their jackets so that they're moderators for the channel. That help keep out a lot of the riffraff, and it also allows them to interact with each other. They can visit each other's channel and all while we're in the chat, and it gives them the opportunity to support one another's channel at the same time. So if you that yeah, but here's the thing. I'm colorblind. So once I give them the jacket, I can hardly see them. So it makes it tougher to see once I give them the jacket, but it's okay. But they're out there. Lyrics by Nithya is in there. And hello, Lyrics. And great show you had the other day. I was glad to be in her live on, I want to say it was Saturday. I believe so. But it was definitely a good live. So thank you for allowing me to be there. And then I see Frederick Jackson is in the house. So hello, Frederick Jackson, Sharon Jackson, Karen Jackson, and Niecy Jackson. There's a whole lot of Jacksons out there, so that's a good thing. So it's good to have support from the family and friends. And then I see Mary and Princess Blog is in the house. So we here, and then Chris, is it Chris Hort? Yes, PSW Healthcare and more. So we thank you all for being here, and we got Dr. Jessica Jackson, and we're just talking about some of her college days. So, Doctor, did anything happen in your college life that you would like? I'm just saying it's like I had an experience when I was in school. I went to Virginia Tech. I went on full scholarship, playing football, but and one of the things I was saying, one of the classes I took an English class. So I'm in the English class. I go up in there. Me and I would say half of the freshman football team was in there at the same time, and we're all in this class. It was I forgot what the extra class was, but the teacher recognized us anyway. She said, "Y'all sitting in the back of the room. You need to move up front." And she matter of fact, she said, "You football players need to move up front." So we're like, "How you know we football players?" Her comment was, "Because none of y'all have any necks, so you just head and shoulders. So y'all muscle, y'all have no neck, so y'all sitting out there like, okay, we good." So we move up front, but anyway, she throws a lot of other questions at it. But I end up dropping her class, and that's why I mentioned the part about the first generation as far as in college and things like that. And you saying you read a lot, so you probably wouldn't have missed this like I did. But so I dropped the class because it was just too difficult. She was too challenging. She wanted to, not only did she want me in this English class, she wanted me to read books. She wanted me to do all this other stuff. I didn't go to college for that. See, that was not what I should have been thinking. But anyway, that professor was Nikki Giovanni, and I dropped her class. So it's one of those things where now, had I had another opportunity or even knew who it wasn't until years later they like, "You did what? You dropped whose class?" Like, yeah, because I didn't know who she was. She didn't mean anything to me. So did you ever experience anything like that, or where it's like I went in thinking one thing and then end up going a whole different direction?
I don't know that I ever experienced something like that. I think for me, I guess going in a different direction was figuring out what I did want to do and be. And I still don't know that that's figured out. And I think, there's a lot of pressure on people to make decisions. So when I applied to the one college, I think at the time in high school, I was taking like a home home ec class. I don't even know if they still teach that. So I decided I was going to major in fashion merchandising, and bless my parents because they were paying for me to go to school out of state at a school not known for fashion in North Carolina for fashion merchandising, because their thing was like, okay, we'll give it a try. And very quickly, I switched my major after my first semester. I was an English major. And then I decided I was going to teach. I was going to be an English teacher. So I did the first praxis and had even started doing the first, I think at the time they call it like a practicum. And then a requirement was you had to take Psychology 101. And that changed things for me. Then I decided that I was going to switch my major. And then I ended up kind of double majoring because I would have had to start over. I was already too deep in to completely switch my major. So I ended up graduating with an English and psych degree. But I guess so that was me. You think one thing and go a different route. But I remember it was Dr. Marvin Hall. I took his class and that changed things for me to decide to become at the time I didn't even know if I was going to become a psychologist. I just knew I was interested in psychology and mental health. And I don't know if it's still true, but as of last year, A&T was the number one producer of undergraduate psychology majors in the country. So we have a lot of people that come through there because then people go on to do different things with a psych undergrad degree, like human resources and different things. But so it was large classes. And so that kind of, I guess, shifted my trajectory from being an English teacher to working in mental health.
Wow, wow. So one class, one professor can change everything. So
Mhm.
that's amazing in itself. So now I'm gonna ask you this:
Mhm.
if you were talking to someone that was, say, a freshman in college, what advice would you give them right now? That's put you in there. You're talking to a freshman that's undecided. They don't know what direction they or what they want to do, or maybe they're tossed like you were. What would you tell them?
I would tell them, I guess what I was just saying, like it's okay to figure it out, to allow yourself to be open. I do tell people all the time, I get people who ask me a lot about grad school, and my thing is like you need to figure out what you're passionate about. And I would say the same thing for undergrad. It's a big commitment if it's not something you're passionate about. And so I encourage people to figure out what that is. I think a lot of times people are like, how will I make money or what career will help? But then they end up not enjoying it. They don't like what they do or it feels burdensome. And so I think for freshmen, I'm like, figure out what you like to do, figure out what your skill is. You will figure out how to make money eventually. But I think deciding to choose something based on that is not what leads people to feeling content or fulfilled. So for freshmen, I would say take all the classes you can and figure out what you like, what speaks to you. You never know, something you've never heard of or tried before. Like I had no clue that I was going to take a psychology class and it would change things. So you never know what will inspire you or motivate you.
Right. Wow. That's very good points. I mean, because and I think you made the comment. You're still trying to figure out, what you want to do.
Mhm.
We all. I'm in that same boat, and I'm 50 plus years old. So you don't always know because it's so much that's going on and things that change. And not that I want to change professions or want to change careers, but it's like, okay, I was doing this for the last 4 years, and I want to try this and I want to try that. Might be under the same umbrella as company wise, but it's a
Mhm.
whole different world, and it just keeps it. To me, it keeps the excitement going. It's always something new. You get stagnant sometimes when you're just doing the same thing over and over and over. So you want to look for something new, and I
Yeah.
believe that's where a lot of people they feel they have to do just one thing, and it's like
Mhm.
you have so many different directions you can go. So
Mhm.
now you said grad school, so I'm gonna go with
Mhm.
that for a second. So you went to North Carolina A&T. Is
Mhm.
that where you did your graduate studies, or did you go somewhere else for your?
No, I got my master's degree in counseling from George Washington University in DC, and then I got my PhD in psychology at New Mexico State University.
Oh wow! So, what is New Mexico State like? What is that like? Because I can tell you, I've been to DC. Well, you
Mhm.
been to DC. I've been to North Carolina, but I've never been to New Mexico. So now you're going to enlighten me a little bit on New Mexico as a culture, so as a place inside the states.
I think, well, It is like to me any other college town. So I think that's the difference. I probably didn't get to see as much of the culture because that's how college towns work. The culture is the university.
Mm,
So it is a large school there. And so I spent most of my time on campus, but they do have a lot of indigenous culture. We learned a lot about, I mean, I have probably had some of the best training that I've had as a clinician there. And when I talk to other people about it, they would agree because there is a lot more learning about, like, we had a minor, indigenous ways of knowing, or I minored in mindfulness, and so taking extra courses, learning about how plants are medicinal. We did a lot of like what we call interprofessional immersion because it is considered more rural. So outside of the college town, so which is Las Cruces, it is more rural. The state is more rural, but I didn't spend a lot of time outside of Las Cruces. But because of that community, we did a lot of what we call cross training. So I was working with MDs and PharmDs, DNPs, all these different professions to figure out how we would work together in healthcare to help people who can't always come into a clinic,
mhm,
who live in communities, for example, where there's no sidewalks, right? All of that is related. Somebody who has diabetes, they also need behavior change, which is psychology. So it's not just about taking their medication. So it's like, how do you come together to help them have behavior change if they're in an environment that's not conducive to that? So I think I learned more about, as far as like culture for New Mexico on campus, but I didn't spend a lot of time outside of Las Cruces
mm.
when I was there.
Ah, that's very good comment that you made, and I wasn't thinking about it like that. So you're right. If I need to change something about what I'm doing, change the way I'm doing it,
Mhm.
sometimes you go to your medical doctor, and your medical
Mhm.
doctor say you have this and you need to do this, but I never thought about it. I would have to go maybe find a psychologist to help me work
Mhm.
on some of the other parts to help me change my mindset,
Mhm.
change the way I'm thinking about that. That's pretty cool. So that I'd have never thought about it in that way because you just think, me, I'm Big Jack.
Mhm.
I'm Big Jack. So Big Jack ain't, it's not because I just like using the word big in front of Jack. It's just the fact that I'm a big guy. So
Yeah.
and a lot of things is a mindset, like when I finished playing college ball, and that's all they do prior to getting you on that level was to get you big.
Mhm.
You eat certain foods to get big, you do all this working out to get big. And then like I say, once the game is over, what do you do with it? What do you do with the bigness? What do you do with the size? And it's like, I can't remember the time that I was under 200 pounds
Mhm.
because it's been like that. I've been like
Mhm.
that since I was in high school. I played at 225. I
Mhm.
played in college at 225, 235. I went in the military at 250. So I can't
Mhm.
remember when I was under 200 pounds. But if I go to a medical doctor right now, they'd be like, you're overweight. But
Mhm.
all the things I've done in my life where I was in tip top shape was over what you look at on a scale. So it's abusive in the mind and the mindset because it's like I say, you use that as an excuse to say, hey, I've always been like this.
Mhm.
So, but that doesn't mean that I'm healthy. That doesn't mean that I'm doing the right thing, or is it a way? But I don't even know I couldn't even imagine to look trying to look at 180. I think they said I need to be 185 to be whatever. I can't even imagine that. I would, yeah, that would be crazy even if I saw myself at 185. You would think I was sick. You'd be like, "What's wrong with you? How are things going?" But so I don't believe that's what you're focused on as far as. But is that something that someone in your profession I would have to talk to help me get myself lined up for, say, even in weight loss or healthy living and healthy eating and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, not just psychologists, I think other licensed mental health professionals, but it is a lot of it is it's less about mindset and more about how do you change behavior, right? So you think about
Mhm,
any health situation. I use diabetes because it's an easy example, but even, I did my fellowship at the VA in Los Angeles in primary care. It's, somebody has high blood pressure, it's not always a physical thing, right? So, yes, they can take medication, they can do what they need, but they might come and see me because they really need to manage their stress a little bit better. And they
mhm,
have to understand stress. So, it might be learning something like mindfulness or learning how to relax, right? I tell people all the time our brains are not wired for thriving, they're wired for survival. Your brain's literal job is to make sure you breathe every time you're supposed to breathe, that you swallow, that you blink, all of these things. You have to train it to do things that are like thriving. It's not something that's going to magically happen. So when people are saying, I don't even understand stress, be able to know how to regulate my stress, that's where you're going to talk to a professional like myself. Let's work on it. Let's figure out what you can do to relax, right? People can be so used to operating at high stress levels that they don't even realize that that's not healthy for your entire body. And normally it will manifest as health symptoms. So you will get somebody that will then, for things like hypertension, high blood pressure, migraines, all kinds of things. Once they're like, we can't find a physical reason for it, it's normally people from my career that come in and say, let's see what else we can figure out, and then help you to change the behavior. So that's for anything, changing behavior, food, changing your sleep behavior, sleep hygiene, thinking about people who want to reduce their drinking or substance use or any of that. It is behavior change. It is literally training your brain to do something different and working with somebody to help you to do so.
Oh wow, yeah, that's it. Like I say, it's definitely um, enlightening of what you're saying and everything that you're saying, because of the fact that so many times we don't even realize. I mean, we know, and I say it on the show often, that stress is harmful to you, but
Mm-hmm.
not knowing and having someone now that you can give us the actual, I guess they would say, clinical terms and actual, the studies behind it to say why stress is harmful, because we there's good stress, and then there's bad stress, and the thing is, like you say, you don't even realize, and you just saying it make me thinking, I'm thinking of myself, that you don't realize that you're stressing, that you're staying at a high level all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and that it is causing other issues that you won't see. I don't think they just would expose themselves until, but then it's like, what do I do about it? That's the biggest thing for a lot of people. What do I do about it? Because I still got to feed my family. I still got to keep a roof over my head. I still got to keep, clothes on my back and this and that. So that stress is always is there, and maybe I'm looking at it stress as a parent, stress
Mm-hmm.
as a parent that with responsibilities and things like that, and that's a stress that I have that doesn't change. Like, I got to go in tomorrow. I got to go to work. I can't quit my job. I can't do this and that. So for you to say, not that you're saying it, but for someone to tell me, well, you just get rid of, I would say, whatever it's causing you stress, get rid of it. Well, it's going to cause more stress if I lose my job. I would be
Yeah.
under more stress.
But I think that is the thing, it's perspective, because none of those things have to be stressful.
Mm,
Right. So going to work doesn't automatically mean it's stressful. It is how people are used to moving, right? This urgency sometimes, or what is actually it, because you had a great point. There is good stress and bad stress. It's like once you cross over that line, there are things like getting married, having a baby, starting a new job. You need that stress, that cortisol. It motivates you to get prepared. But when it starts to impact your functioning, that's when we have a totally different issue. And I think, especially from a cultural lens, many people don't realize we are conditioned or socialized to think that everything needs to be struggle and difficult, but it doesn't. Right. And so some of what the stress is a mindset, is like, how can I maybe shift my perspective a little bit, or figuring out, do I have to do this? So yes, you have to pay bills, but does it have to be that job? Maybe not. And if it's causing stress, it's like, well, how do I figure out something else, or how do I alleviate some of the stress? Maybe I do have to go to this job, but what is the stressful part of it? Maybe it's my commute. And so I keep telling myself I have to drive, but do I have to drive? Like, if it will reduce my stress to go to the job and I can carpool or I can catch a train and that reduces my stress, well, that's the part that was harmful. Right. So a lot of it is we feel as humans sometimes boxed in, and then we're socialized in the sense of it has to be struggle, it has to be difficult, it has to be hard. I mean, people say it all the time. They're like, it builds character. You should go through this. People use the term resilience, for example, like it's a badge of honor. No, if you're resilient, that means you've been through a lot of really hard, difficult things. Nobody wants to go through that, but you went through it and overcame. But no one is choosing to say, let me go through really hard, difficult things so somebody can call me resilient, right? It's more of how we think about it, how we look at it. So, to a degree, there are things that we can be responsible for, we can change, that can reduce our stress, even if we're in the same situation.
nope. Very good points, and thank you. Yeah, and that's like I said, I think a lot of times we, um, because of what we're told and the way things were, and especially older generations to younger generations. They call us a lot of, especially younger generation now. They say
Mhm.
they're weak, or
Mhm.
because they don't handle things the way it was handled 20 years ago, 40 years
Mhm.
ago, 50 years ago. And I don't agree that it's about being weak. I think this, like I say, things have changed in the way we handle things, or things we just didn't know that we had problems years ago that now it's like that's not normal. That
Mhm.
should never been become normal, but we've
Mhm.
made it normal. We've like I say, resilient from it. We grew from it. We became stronger. We built up a good callus against it, but we shouldn't have. That should have been addressed years ago, and it
Mhm.
only, yeah, I think makes it bad or make it worse. So
Mhm.
before we go any further, I want to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and we want to not acknowledge the people that's down in the chat, and then we'll drop another commercial. We're going to come back and talk with Dr. Jessica Jackson on the Iron Sharpening Iron show. And I do see Desi's in the house. The Source, thank you for popping in. Lyrics by Nithya, thank you. Magic of Healing, Admina is in the house. Thank you for being here. Blessed Crochet is in the house, and thank you. Sharon Jackson, Nisi Jackson, Frederick Jackson, Patricia White's in the house. Karen Jackson's in the house. Dr. CC, Cynthia McKnight's in the house. Thank you all for being here. We got Dr. Jessica Jackson, Phil Does in the house, and if I'm trying not to miss anybody, but sometimes I do. Els Endeavor, thank you for being here. And if I don't call your name, it's not personal. It's just the fact that sometimes you're just trying to scroll up and see everybody that's in here, which is a good thing that people are here. But it says Cindy Lifestyle and More. Thank you for being here on Iron Shop and Iron Show. So, how did you end up in Texas? We went DC. No, we went Carolina, DC, New
Yeah.
Mexico. So, how we get to Texas?
Work. So I, you know, you go to school for a long time to be a psychologist. I've probably been in school longer in my life than I haven't been in school.
Hmm.
And you do a fellowship. So I was in Los Angeles for internship and fellowship, and I got a faculty position here in Houston in the medical center. So Houston's medical center is the largest biomedical center in the world. So
Hmm.
it's a lot of hospitals in a very uh, small square mile acreage. And so I was an assistant professor in the psychiatry department at Baylor College of Medicine, and that's what brought me to Houston.
Right. Okay. So, how you liking the Houston area? Now, I've
Um,
been to Houston before. I have been to Houston before. So, how
yeah.
you like the Houston area?
I like Houston. It is. I like the weather for the most part, not the storms, the hurricanes. I like the warmth. And it to me, it reminds me of being in an HBCU. That is something I think representation is very important. So
Hmm.
I like being able to be in a city where it doesn't matter what type of restaurant it is or what type of grocery store. Everywhere I look, there are people that look like me.
Hmm.
And that is something that is valuable to me. So being able to be spaces and not always be the person that stands out is good for my own peace of mind. And so I like it. I like being able to have the community. Houston is a large city. I think it just came out last week that we are the third most populous city in the US. So it's a very large city. So I like being able to live in a city, to be able to. I'm not a big fan of the suburbs, so I like being able to. There's nothing I can't do in Houston if I'd like to do it. I can go to the theater. I can go, you know, to see different shows. There's airport, so I like Houston.
No, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. A lot of I was there. Well, been to Dallas. I've been to Houston, a couple of spots in Texas, and even. But at the same time, yeah, most people go right back to where they're familiar with or comfortable with. So I believe,
Mhm.
we some travel far away from their family, and some stay close to their family. But that's always, I always look at it. You're giving me a place to go visit.
Mhm.
So if they say, "Hey, I'm gonna be in Texas," and I made that mistake with you, and not just you, but other people I know, and like, "Hey, I'm in Texas." They're like, "What part?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm in Dallas." They're like, "Shit, that's like 5 hours away. Texas is a
Yes.
big state."
Yeah.
Texas is a big state. So yeah, because I was just in Dallas for a conference, but it's like
Mhm.
you're so far away. It's not even, excuse me. It's not even. We shouldn't even talk about trying to commute or not even go out to see each other.
Right.
But that's good. Now, how far are you? from the University of Houston. Are you in that area? Or was that
Yeah,
for,
I'm less than 10 minutes from University of Houston, where I
okay?
live at. Mhm.
All right. So,
Mhm.
and I know because of all the, I'm not sure if you're a sports fan, but all the different sport activities is in the Houston area. So you got, if you're into sports, you can definitely catch a baseball game, football game, basketball game, and anything else out there in the Houston area by itself. There's just so much going on, and like you say, shows and everything else. Houston is live. Have you caught a rodeo yet out there?
I have.
Oh yeah.
We go to rodeo, my friends and I, every year. They
Mm.
are the largest rodeo in North America. So it runs for almost a month every year. It's a big deal. People come from all over. So I've gone to the rodeo almost every year I've been here, probably.
Oh, that's cool. A lot of people can't say they've been to a rodeo, and I'm gonna be one of them. So I'm gonna raise my hand. So that's something that's on my little list to do. I want to actually go to a rodeo. I
Yeah.
know when I was last down there, and I'm not even sure what part I was in, but they had the running of the bulls. Oh, not running of the bulls, but they would let they was, I guess, moving the cattle from one place of the town to the other place, and they went right through the middle of the street, middle of downtown, and I'm like, this is not normal, but hey, you're in Houston or you're in Texas, some part, and now all I'm seeing is these big long horns running through the middle of the town, and they just shut the streets down and let them get through. And I'm like, I guess that's how you get them from point A to point B. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. That is pretty cool. So I appreciate that. So now, tell us a little bit about your practice now. What is the I know you said you were doing you had a private practice, but now you're
Mhm.
not in the. I guess you're just doing other things. So what are you doing now outside of private practice?
I still do private practice, but it's a very small part of the work that I do. I mean, for me, a large part of continuing to do private practice is to help me to just, I mean, if I have a license, I need to use it, but
Mm,
it's also of helping me to stay connected to what I consider like the on the ground work of mental health. So in my other roles, I do a lot more strategy, high level, kind of macro level mental health work, systems change. And then in my practice, I see athletes. So I've been doing that since grad school. And then I also see a lot of people who are, working in the medical center. So colleagues will refer people primarily because they feel like I understand. I get what it's like to be working in those type of environments, which can be stressful for many people, especially when you're literally kind of dealing with life and death every day. People do
mm,
need different support. And then I also do consulting for mental health startups. So I've been doing that I used to work full time in health technology. And now I do a lot of consulting with people who are building different apps, everything from like note takers to augmented reality, looking at like AI. So I do a lot of that work also through
mm.
my practice in consulting and helping people to make sure that they are doing what I consider ethically and responsible, but also thinking about culture, right? I think you have to understand something to be able to criticize it. And while I love being a psychologist, culture was really added as an afterthought, thinking about diversity and what does that mean and how it shows up in mental health symptoms, expressions of mental health. And I don't think technology is the end all be all, but it is a way to get it right so that people like myself, clinicians, are not having to modify and adapt interventions 15 and 20 years from now, because we're not building it right now. So as people are building it, it is a huge industry. Mental health is the largest invested in specialty for technology, for health technology, for the past several years.
Mhm.
And so, really making sure that they're also understanding culture, that they're understanding that what depression looks like is going to look different, how it manifests for people depending on their gender or their ethnic identity, their age, so that you cannot just say one size fits all.
Yeah, and I noticed that, like, if I just go to a regular doctor, that's all. I'm going to the regular doctor, and they start off the questions. Are you depressed?
Mhm.
Are you thinking of harming yourself? Are you thinking of? So is that something that now being added to the question because of the awareness of mental health? That is something that now the doctors are starting to ask. I know that it came and I asked, but it just said this is just something that we have to ask. So now I'm having someone that can maybe explain it to me. That's why I'm putting it out there on the table.
Yeah, I think it's less of an awareness and more of there's been a lot of work to destigmatize. And the thing is that for many people, no one is asking them. And there are a lot of people who could be helped, who could get support, early intervention if somebody asked. So they are doing it more because it actually saves lives. And because, as I mentioned before, the relationship with health. So when you go to your primary care doctor, they are probably going to ask you about symptoms of depression because you can do everything you need medically right and still not be in recovery from something because your mental health is impacting it. And so that is a very, what we would say is like kind of, low cost, effective way to help people, right? If I come in and they ask me, that might be the first person who's ever asked someone, are you thinking about taking your life? And they might actually be thinking about it and no one bothered to ask them, right?
Mhm.
We just saved a life in that way. Or
Right.
somebody who is depressed, who no one is talking about depression with them. So they don't recognize that you don't have to be sad to have depression. For some people, it looks like anger. It looks like having low mood or having trouble sleeping. Well, no one asked because they're not crying all the time and they've been suffering and struggling with depression for years because no one thought to ask them. So it's
Mhm.
more of like trying to destigmatize and help people get the help that they need. And also at the end of the day, insurance companies, it saves money. The cost of not supporting people's mental health is very expensive. And so when they can do prevention and early intervention, it saves everybody money.
Okay. So now, what do you believe, or how do you feel on as far as medication? Because I know, like, especially with kids, we see a lot of kids, they ADHD or what is it? I guess a hypertension, not hypertension, but what is it? ADHD, and
Mhm.
it's I guess it's other areas in that thing. But they come up with kids they're super hyper. They got this, they got that, and they just want to put them on medication. So do you believe that's the right thing to do, or is it something? And I'm not asking you as a doctor. I'm just more. I
Mhm.
guess you are the doctor, but I'm more asking, because I'm against it in a sense. I think if you need it, you need it, but is there another fix? And that's where I think it's easier just to give them medicine. So if you can say something on that.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this. If you had cancer, would you not take medication?
I believe I would. I know I would. I've had cancer and I did take the medication.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. But I guess a big thing is with I believe it's the age. When you're talking like a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, is that the time to start, or is it too early, or is it that's right, or just right? Have we done the studies? I guess where I'm at.
I think that people, if they get assessment. So the reason I ask about the cancer is because I think, and this is, I'm going to push you on this, but I think because people have a lot of bias, they do not see mental health as a part of the regular health. Mental health is just brain health. Your brain is a part of your body. So why would we have a different thought about medication depending on age? If you had a 6-year-old who had leukemia, you wouldn't say, I'm not going to give them medication. If a child actually has ADHD, that is a neurodevelopmental disorder. It is not just them being hyper. It is literally something that was going to change the way that their brain is. So to say I would not give them medication if they've been assessed and it's been determined that they have it, then there's a bias about what it means to have something that's a mental health diagnosis. So I think, yes, if it's just hyperactivity, a good clinician is not saying medication. If it is ADHD and there's full assessments to do that, I've done them, it makes a huge difference for that child. Like you literally could change their experience in the world by providing them what they need. And so the reason that I push back when people are talking about the medication piece is because that is part of the stigmatization of mental health is this idea that it's a separate thing. And it's like, I don't, to borrow what you said, like, I don't believe in medication. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Right? Like somebody has depression. Kids are just smaller humans. They can have anxiety. They can have depression. Why make them struggle through it? And just because you're on medication doesn't mean you're on it for the rest of your life. Sometimes medication helps you to get to the space that you can learn the skills to be able to taper off, right? I know a lot of people who, for example, had ADHD and they got to a certain point where they learned what they needed, coping skills and how to maneuver so that they didn't need the medication. But medication did not make it worse for them or do something to them. It gave them an even playing field to be able to say, it's just like if somebody has dyslexia. their brain is processing information differently. So you can't say, well, just push through. And they're like, I can't read because I have dyslexia. It's not that they don't want to read, their brain is processing it differently. That is the same thing with something like ADHD.
Right. Well, thank you for straightening me out. I appreciate it. No, this is this is the Iron Sharpening Iron show. This is what it's all about. We're learning. I'm gonna get stronger because of your information for me, and I appreciate that. And it's not that I'm against. I think that, like you said, the thought pattern for a lot of people is just it's easier to just give them some medicine and now I don't have to deal with it anymore. So it's like I don't, some parents, some teachers, and all, because if you got 7, 8 kids in the same class with the same thing, it just seemed like it's. I remember I'm looking for a medication, and there's nowhere in the whole county that had it. No pharmacy in the
Mhm.
county had it because that many kids were on it. And it's like
Mhm.
maybe we're misdiagnosing or whatever. But it was just the fact that it's like, wow, I mean, it can't be that many. But it could be. Like I say, I don't know. So
I
I'm
think,
learning.
you know, I think, like I said, if people are assessed, but I think it's also thinking about that perspective because you also have to think when you were growing up, people probably weren't talking about it because it was stigmatized. So it might feel like a lot of kids now when it's actually the same amount, but they're able to get the support because people are talking about it.
Mhm.
So it's actually, when you think about it, you might actually have 7 or 8 kids in the class who do need to get that support. You probably had 7 or 8 that were in your class too, but they weren't getting the support they needed because people didn't talk about mental health. So it feels like, oh, all of a sudden it's a whole lot of people. And it's like, well, no, it means that the destigmatization initiatives worked. People are willing to talk about it. They're willing to get the support. They're willing to reach out and say, help my child.
All right. Well, look, I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that. So I'm here with Dr. Jessica Jackson. We're on the Iron Sharpening Iron show. She's definitely straightened out Big Jack today on the subject of mental health and, like I say, and the stigma, stigmatism that we use. Sometimes we just think, we're old school to new school and all that other stuff. But it is a real issue. Mental health is definitely a real issue. I'm glad that we have some doctors like Dr. Jackson out there who are taking their profession seriously, and they're definitely moving in the right direction. Now, I got a little bit more time before this show is over, and we go into the after show. Excuse me, excuse me. And you mentioned that you work with more. You said athletes now. Is that what you do?
In my practice, yeah, I work with
Okay.
athletes and then people who have, I would say, they have jobs that feel more stressful. So most of the time, I'm working with like nurses, physicians, people who palliative care, that kind of work.
Okay, because I guess I was more curious on the, what is this an athlete? Not that you have the name of patient, but if you could just
Mhm.
generalize what an athlete would come to you for, I guess.
Mhm. They would come to me for the same things that everybody else does,
Right.
right? So, I think people think that because you have money or you play on a stage or just, these different things, you have a big platform, but they normally those are the things that aren't getting addressed is that they do experience grief and depression and stress and burnout and anxiety. And because of how the expectations, right? People think that they should be um I think be able to deal with it, right? So you also think about for many athletes, they are experiencing the same things that we are on an everyday level, but on a stage where millions of people are looking at them and
Mhm.
judging them for how they are addressing it, right? I can have anxiety and no one's going to say anything. If you play basketball or you're, a baseball player, football player, and you have anxiety, it becomes news. It becomes a
Mhm.
huge thing, right? They don't have the space to deal with it. Most of the time, if I'm working with athletes, we're actually not even really talking about that work. We're talking about all the other pieces that everyone else leaves out because they only focus on their ability to reduce and play.
Right. I would say mine. I wish there was someone like you, honestly, that I had to talk to when I went through, because I got a major injury when I was in high school, and had to have serious, major surgery to get that corrected. But
Mhm,
what I say, and I tell people all the time, I lost my heart.
mhm,
The thing that made me that made me a good player prior to the injury, I didn't have that anymore, and I just didn't know what it was. It was
mhm,
I was afraid. I really was afraid of getting hurt again, and it slowed me down. It made me change the way I was, ran the ball and all of that stuff. But you really didn't have anybody to talk to. And we're talking in 1988, 89, 90. So there was no one to talk to. It was more like, like back to that you're weak, or and you convince yourself, or you self-diagnose yourself on how I'm gonna get over this, and you start beating yourself up because of the fact that you're just not performing like you did before. But I was 100% afraid of getting hurt again. That surgery and the pain and all that, I was like, there's no way. But but again, thank you for being out there. I'm sure there's a whole lot of athletes or people that, like you say, you're right. When you're on a big stage and whatever you're doing, it's needed to have someone to talk to and help you get over the hump sometimes to move forward and know that some of the things that you're feeling is normal. It's not a bad thing. So we're gonna take a quick break, and we come back. We'll be in the after show, and we're gonna get some other guests that's going to come up on the stage with us. I know you already told me your time is limited, so we're going to try to get it moving. But I appreciate you. We got Dr. Jessica Jackson here on the Iron Sharpening Iron Show. And when we come back, we'll have other guests on the stage, and we'll have a deeper conversation about what Dr. Jackson has been talking about. But until then, I want you to watch this quick commercial and stay tuned. And thank you. All right, we're back on the Iron Sharpening Iron Show. This your man Big Jack. I got my guest, Dr. Jessica Jackson. We're getting ready to bring some people up on the stage. So give me 1 second, Dr. Jackson, as I bring one of my people up real quick. And this is new. This is the first time for him, so he got to check it out, see if he like it or not. So we're gonna drop this one out real quick.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
My man Walt, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, man, Dr. Jackson, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hey, Jack, that's pretty cool, man. Great show. Dr. Jackson, before we get started, I'd just like to say one thing. Aggie pride.
Aggie pride.
Yeah, my daughter went to A&T, best money I ever spent. And when you talk about your experience, she narrowed it down to 2 colleges. One was Virginia Tech, and the other was A&T. And when we left Virginia Tech, she was like, "Yeah, I want to go there." And I said, "We haven't even been to A&T yet." And that orientation just crushed it. It just got it. It hooked it. So it was done. It was over. Yeah. So hey, congratulations to you, and great conversation. And I will say that I don't know if you guys singing that, but the singing Jacksons aren't necessarily the most talented Jacksons, because this Jackson family is pretty talented. So congratulations. Right. Yeah.
Appreciate that, Walt. And so Dr. Jackson, if you didn't know, this is my man Walt. He normally comes on the after shows, but he doesn't have a stage name yet. So that's why it just says I need a name, LOL. So we still got people out there. So if anyone out there in the chat can find a name for my man Walt, go ahead and drop a name in there for him. He needs a name. All right. Before we move forward, Walt, we got one more guest we're gonna bring up on the stage. Okay. So let's get her up on the stage. All right, got Dr. Raven in the house. How you doing, Raven? How you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How's everybody?
Oh,
All right.
Hello.
Dr. Barr.
Uh, so Raven, were you able to hear some of the comments or the show that Dr. Jackson had and some of the things? So, Raven, before we even get started, can you give us just a little bit of background of what your profession is and you're a doctor of, and that way we can see how these two can relate to each other.
Yes, hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Raven Farr. I have a doctorate in educational leadership. My major was learning organizations and strategic change. I'm currently a dean of students at a high school in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay, thank you. So, and I know we was talking about students, and that's why that was some of it. And Dr. Jackson straightened me out because I have a teenager, and I know from years, and it was the diagnosis of ADHD and things like that. So we was like, hey,
Ooh.
is there a way of not so much is there a way around it, but at the same time, is you just didn't want to. Um, put a kid, on medicine if they didn't need to be. But just Dr. Jackson, you definitely straightened me out. Like I say, if it was cancer, would you just go ahead and treat it? And I respect that. So, and that's why I'm more wanting to see now. Dr. Raven, do you experience that, or do you see that when you're in the school system?
Yes, I completely agree, Dr. Jackson, with your answer. So previously, I was a math teacher, and I've been in education for 8 years now. And I agree, it doesn't matter the age. When a diagnosis happens to a child, can we go ahead and give them the resources and the things they need to succeed? And it's not a point of, oh, it's going to be easier for me. It's going to be more helpful for the child to be able to receive the instruction, receive the love, receive the culture and everything and all the pieces that education has to offer. They're going to be able to receive it. So I don't think it's easier for the teacher at all. It is just a guide for the student to be able to be in the space and receive what they need.
Okay. All right. So, Walt, yeah, I know you've been listening to the show. Is there anything you would add in on this?
So I'm glad both of you deal with athletes and high school kids, school children. I have a theory, and I'm not a PhD, I'm not a doctor, but I did spend a night or two at the Holiday Inn Express at one point in my life. So my question is, or my theory is, and even in my profession, I was a retired firefighter, even the candidates that are coming through now, I think that kids lost a lot of social skills during COVID. That's my opinion. I think something said to be said. Uh, Dr. Jackson talked about being in the classroom, learning, and dealing with that experience as opposed to online. Sometimes I just think, as a kid, middle school, high school, if you're not out at the playground, getting run off the basketball court by the big boys, moving out the way when they come down, just being challenged about your thinking, even in the workplace. If you are sitting at home online all day, talking to your dog or your cat, everything you say makes sense, but you're not at the coffee pot, you're not at the water cooler having these discussions, these debates, and having your ideas really challenged, and learning your coping skills at that point. Because that's very, very important for kids that age, I think. So then you get a 18-year-old who never went through that, and now they're like they don't know how to express those emotions. So what is your opinion? What are your opinions on that?
Dr. Jackson.
Whoa.
Yeah. Um, I think I heard a couple of different things in there.
Okay.
It is nuanced. I will say I think it is nuanced. Um, I don't know that youth have lost social skills. I think sometimes, right, and social media gets a lot of blame. I don't know that it's all the blame. I think it's in moderation, like other things. I think what is happening is there's a generational divide about how we think social skills should happen, right? Like culturally. There are, for example, you will have people of a certain generation who are like, you speak to everybody no matter what, because that's what they believe. There are people in a younger generation who are like, I don't need to speak to that person. I don't know them. And I'm like, how are we to say that that's wrong, right? There's evolutions of things. It's kind of like cursive. I had to learn cursive in school. What does that do for me now? I don't use cursive ever, right? But it is a skill that was required. So I think that it's a nuanced thing. I think that you're also, in my opinion, seeing a lot of youth push back on what we consider traditional norms and like, why do I have to do this? So I don't know that they've lost a social skill. I think that they interact socially very differently than other generations, and I think there's a lot of assumptions because a lot of the research actually shows that younger kids, youth, many of them actually don't even prefer things like smartphones. So as much as social media gets a bad rap, they're finding that there's a movement within them, even for lots of things. They drink less than other generations, they use less substances, they actually don't use as much internet as people think, but everyone is very focused on social media. So I think that they interact socially very differently, and that is maybe sometimes where we get some of the misunderstanding about it.
So there are things that we all experienced as kids that we asked our parents, why do we have to know that? Why do we have to do that? So when you take that to the workplace, so let's go fast forward to now they're 25 in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time somebody tells you to do something, and in my line of profession, I don't have time to explain to you, hey, there's a hole in the floor. Please don't go any farther. I just need you to stop and need you to understand that, that type of thing. How do you reconcile that? And as far as cursive goes, I get it. I also am a notary and I do loan signings. And I'm watching adults now buying their first homes who can't write, who can't sign their name. They are printing their name when they ask for a signature, which is, again, it's generational. I get it. So it's just like the real world is still set up for knowing certain things. So how do we bridge that gap?
Mm-hmm. Dr. Fry, did you? I mean, I just
yeah.
I have a thought, but I want to give you the opportunity.
No, yeah, Raven, and before you go, and that was a good question, Walt. So before you go, Raven, we got another guest that's right there on the stage. So let's bring her up here real quick. All right, and that would be Dr. CC McKnight's on the stage. So hello, Dr. CC, how you doing?
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Hello,
All right, and CC, before you go started, can you just give us your background real quick and we can bring you in the conversation?
Presently, I am the National Program Director for NAMI FaithNet. So I help to navigate faith and mental health within every denomination, every culture, every faith that wants to discuss how to combine their faith or belief system with their mental health diagnosis or mental wellness. And this is what I do nationally.
Okay. All right. And thank you for being on the show with us, Dr. CC. So, and the question went out. Walt, Raven, did you hear the question?
Can you ask it again?
So Walt, I'm just saying, I understand that a lot of these things are generational, but when these kids come into the workforce, they are at the lower end of the age scale. So they have to deal with people who are like you and like me, so if they don't get certain skill sets that we are expecting them to have when they get there, how do we reconcile that? How do we bridge the gap?
That's a great question. I'll confidently speak about, I'm 30. I got my doctorate when I was 28. And so I am that younger person in the building, and I have older administrators. And I think it's a perfect blend when you can have the new generation bring on the new ideas and bring on the new trends to help with what's happening, at least in my field, in terms of education, because I am closer to age at the students that I see. And so I think leaning on each other's strengths should be the focus versus trying to necessarily like dictate, oh, you should have this certain skill because I have this certain skill. Now, what skills can you help bring to the table so I can show you this and you can show me that, and then we can learn from each other in that aspect. I don't think everybody should have the same skill set, because in a team, you want to lean on different skill sets and different people to lead a certain thing, right? And so I think with my school, at least, we're a very innovative school. We're an internship-based school. So our students come to school Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesdays and Thursdays. We send them into the real world and they have internships, and they go learn whatever career field you want to be in the future. You get a chance to do it now in high school. And so while learning cursive and having a signature could be important to some, are you gaining the skills to even sign this signature for the job? Can you do the work?
So
Are you coachable?
so more so the coachable part. That's the part when I say skills, I'm not talking about physical skills. I'm talking about interactive. Uh, like right now, gun violence. I live in Washington D.C. I'm 61, and just going back to the skill set, I haven't used algebra all day today. That's the joke that we had in my generation, right? But the same thing that would get us beat up in the day, jumped, maybe hit with a bottle, maybe hit with a brick, maybe stabbed. You know, the guy just didn't lose his temper and didn't shoot you. Now I came up in the 80s, so things started changing when the drugs hit. But my thing as far as the coping skills, as opposed to the tangible cursive, reading, writing, arithmetic. I mean, just like interacting with people, learning how to figure it out. That part, how do you fit in? What is your position in this thing? Because having a conversation with an 18-year-old rookie, why you need to tuck your shirt tail in. I mean, we just, because you're a professional, you're wearing a uniform, you represent a company, you represent the city. And well, why do I have to tuck my shirt in? But I know when I see you at the club, or I see you at the party, or if I throw the Christmas party, I see you dressed to the nines. I mean, if you have to have that discussion with somebody, how do you bridge that gap? I mean, that's just, in my opinion, nobody's had to tell them that before. You're setting a table right now.
Yeah, I think, well, I would push back with that because even
Okay.
something you said when you first asked the question, you said, I don't have time for that. I think that is a generational piece. Is like, there is a sense, when you were saying, like, if somebody comes and asks a question, you're like, I just need you to
No,
not
no,
walk.
no. But I'm sorry to interrupt you. Specifically, in an emergency situation, we're running down, going down a smoke-filled hallway. You need to be able to follow. If I say stop, and there's a hole in the floor, there's danger. Just like if you tell somebody to stop at the stop sign, I'm not just saying just because I don't have time for that. I mean, sure, we all have that conversation, but I mean, you need to have the concept of what you ladies do at some point, and what Big Jack does. I mean, people get hurt if you don't follow instructions. So that's what
Right.
it's life or death. So I'm saying in that aspect, not
And
just on some power stuff at all. And I'm sorry to
nah,
interrupt you,
and,
but
and I'm sorry, Walt. Dr. Jackson, I think you missed it. Walt is a firefighter. And what he was saying was more like in an emergency situation in the middle of a fire, there's a hole in the floor. I ask you to stop. The younger generation now will be more like why instead of
So
just stopping.
that's what
So
I would push
yeah,
back on because
right.
I don't think that is it. I think that they are more and more saying you didn't give the infrastructure to begin with. So I get life and death situations. I have trained residents in emergency room and inpatient. A part of it though is we are used to saying there's it's a socialization of just because somebody said so I should do it. But if you set up the infrastructure from the beginning, explaining when these things happen, and I say this up front, you are less likely to get the why. But often what happens is people don't do that extra upfront and then they just do it and people are like, why? Part of it is that's actually learning. They need to understand what's happening. We're just like, oh, you should be able to do that. Or even the tucking the shirt in. I would actually push back on the same thing. Who decided that that was professional? Who decided that tucking my shirt in means I am more or less professional, right? It's a slippery slope. It's the same thing with hair, right? That's what I'm saying, the generational divide. And I think more and more you have youth who are pushing back and saying, but who decided that? Who determined that because I don't tuck my shirt in, I'm less professional? There's one thing to say, this is the company and this is what we do and that is the rule. It is another thing to say, well, you were less professional to do that. And I think if it's just what the company is, a lot of youth will understand that this is the role of the company. But when you start talking about other characteristics because they don't do it, I would push back on the same thing. Why do I have to tuck my shirt in?
Okay, so and again, my apologies because clearly I'm talking from day one when you come into a culture. And I don't want to take up all your time, but I just noticed, even as a training officer, it's like almost sometimes it's like, what do you mean? And trust me, I was a renegade. I mean, you talking to a guy that got expelled from 2 schools, so I get it. I mean, I've grown, I've matured, I get it. So I mean, that person is the person that I kind of gravitate to because we need people who think for themselves. It's the old adage of 3 generations of cutting the butt off the ham only to find out that great grandma's pan was too small. Nobody ever asked why. I understand that. And I'm not in any way, because I work with a lot of young folks, in any way trying to throw shade on them. I'm just saying that there's certain things, stopping at a stop sign, not riding down the shoulder, not drinking and driving. These are certain things as a society that we have to comply with. And I mean, so there's some things that are non-negotiable. I mean, in life, period. That's just my opinion. And I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but I'm going to what may seem like an extreme, but this is the day in the life of what we do.
If I may add, I think it has a lot to do with exposure.
Absolutely.
Your experiences.
100%.
Do they have someone like you to tell them the why behind why you feel like it's important they tuck in their shirt? Where are we at? Am I at a restaurant that embodies tucking in my shirt? Am I in a space that I need to show up a certain way? So I agree with the why. And I think that a lot of our generations lack the experience to know when you enter a space in a room, you greet people. The why. So I think that it's just a lack of experience and a lack of exposure to some of the experiences that you're talking about. I don't think all people in our generation are like this. All the kids. I don't think that is the case. But I do think that you just have a lack thereof of exposure.
I was specifically talking about a specific profession coming into a room. If I walk into your hospital and you are disheveled, and I'm a patient, how does that play? I mean, you have to have, regardless of your personal style, there's certain things that if you're working for any of your positions, when a patient walks in, they need to be able to trust you as being the professional that you say you are. Am I wrong there? Am I missing something?
I mean, I think it's just we may. I can't speak for the other analysts. I think it may just be disagreeing. I think there's a quote. It's not my quote. I can't remember who said it, but they said, we see the world not as it is, but who we are. So you are seeing things as you are, your experiences. It doesn't mean that is how everyone else is going to see it. So for me, there are things that I don't need my healthcare provider to look like, right? And I think that, I mean, if you really wanted to go down a rabbit hole, a lot of respectability politics are rooted in a trauma response of survival for Black people. The reason some people speak to everyone, because at one point, if you didn't speak to people, you could have lost your life, right? The reason people tell people to wear a belt is because they thought it would prevent them from getting arrested. It didn't. So there's a lot of things that carried on. And I just think that you have a generation now who's starting to question that and say, why? Because they're trying to understand, because some of it we don't understand. We'll say, well, that was good manners. Who decided, right? Who decided that when you come into a space, a church, everybody should be allowed to hug you and touch you, right? That is coming from this idea that to me is rooted in a lot of trauma response. But kids now, I wouldn't, and I was raised in that way. I've had this conversation with my parents where it's like, they're like, why you won't hug so-and-so? I'm like, why don't I have agency over my body that I don't have to hug them? I would not have my children hug someone. But there are people who would then say I'm rude and you don't have manners and you're this and that because you didn't shake their hand, you didn't hug them, right? So I think a lot of it is that you're getting more and more people who are questioning things. And if we really wanted to go back and explore some of it, some of the respectability politics and manners and professionalism that we're talking about was rooted in experiences that could have cost people their lives and they've just carried over. That's how they survived. So they don't fully understand, but they're like, if you don't do it, there's something wrong. Instead of also questioning, well, why do we have to tuck in our shirt? I get what you're saying about emergency situations and stopping at the stop of a dime, but also there's probably a part of socialization where you were socialized at some point that you didn't question authority, you didn't question elders. So it seems difficult for you when someone is questioning because they're socialized differently. It's not that they won't stop, but they're questioning it.
Okay.
Good point. No, these are good points. Definitely good points. Dr. Cece, I know we back there and I see you down. I don't want to cut you off. And I know, Dr. Jackson, you say your time is short, so I appreciate it. So in the mental health world, and I know you're more, like you say, faith-based, but that's not all about faith. So are you seeing any major changes now as far as support from, like, I know you like maybe grant programs and things like that. Have that been affected from things that's going on within our the administration and things like that? Are you being affected by that?
Yes, very much so. The organization that I am a part of and work with, we do a lot of things to get information out to the people, program to the people, support to the people. We do have the 988 line. And with that 988 line, we have seen a total increase of people dealing with, high levels of anxiety, stress, those more common diagnoses. And I will say, me personally, being in that environment, there's been a great impact to just what we do on a daily basis, because people are really grabbing their purse strings and not wanting, the stakeholders are not wanting to readily give um, in support financially as they would have in the past prior to this new administration. So it definitely has been an effect. My focus more so now has navigated to making sure the BIPOC community knows the resources that are available, because a lot of times we don't talk about it for whatever stigmas that exist within our culture. But knowing what resources are available, where when you are experiencing whatever, you are able to get the help that you need. So those are just some of the changes that are currently going on and have gone on within the last 3 to 4 months.
So, and then Dr. Jackson, I know you do have to leave, and I want to respect your time. Is there anything you would like to say to anyone that's out there that's dealing with anything that you could share before you leave the stage?
Yeah, I think the last thing I would say, I would encourage everyone who is listening to reach out to your Congress people, because Medicaid is on the table. Medicaid is the largest payer of behavioral health services in the United States. There's not an American that will not be impacted if Medicaid is cut. And so I think that if we're having a conversation about mental health and you're thinking about therapy, medication, peer support programs, initiatives, that is something that we have to get involved in and advocate for it not being done, because behavioral health and maternity wards, OBGYN will be the first things to go. And so I think you can't have a conversation about what we need to do and talk about we're in the middle of a mental health crisis and cut the support for it. So I do encourage people to what Dr. McKnight was just saying. People have cut back on how their philanthropic endeavors when it supports behavioral health, and it will only get worse if we lose the money. And I think that people don't always realize what that means, but Medicaid does impact all of your insurance. So even if you don't have Medicaid, but you have regular insurance, insurers follow what CMS does. CMS runs Medicaid. So if that is cut there, it will be cut across the board. That's why I'm saying no one will not be impacted by it. So I think that would be the last thing that I would offer, is encourage people, if you want an action to do advocacy, there are lots of scripts online that tell people what to say, but advocate for keeping behavioral health services so people can get adequately diagnosed with ADHD, so that people do have the option for medication, that people do have the option to get any support that they need across the age range.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know this is the Iron Sharpening Iron show. This is the after show. We had Dr. Jackson as our guest on, and I got Dr. Raven and Dr. CC and my man Walt. But Dr. Jackson has to leave. I know she has a lot going on. She made it clear up front, and I'm a respect her time. So I thank you, Dr. Jackson, for being on the stage. I'm gonna ask the other ones to stay because we can still discuss, because we all heard what you had to say, just so we get that little point, the points across, and see if we can get that out to those who are in the chat and those who may be watching later. But Dr. Jackson, again, thank you for being a guest on the show. I've learned a lot about you. It definitely opened up my mind and my thought pattern towards the mental health issues, and not even to say issues, but the mental health itself, and even the way I look at things and some of the supports that's out there, and how I should even for myself, like I say, it was more for myself. So again, thank you for being on the show, and I look forward to talking to you later. in our passing and all. For those who don't know, Dr. Jackson is my cousin, so we are actually related to each other. So that is a cousin. So as Walt said, the Jackson, not just Michael Jackson and their crew, but the Jacksons got some talented people in there. So again, thank you, Dr. Jackson, for being on the stage.
Nice
Thank
meeting
you.
All right, all
Thank
right.
Thank
you.
See
you.
you later.
you.
Yeah.
Meeting you.
Have a good evening.
All right. So we know that Dr. Jackson, she had some good things to say, and she definitely changed my mindset. So that's why I asked you all to be here, because I know Dr. CC and Dr. Raven, both of you, both deal with this on I would say on a regular basis. Mental health as a profession, or even dealing with the different stressors. I can only imagine being a kid that's in school and having to worry about a meal, worrying about if I'm gonna have a place to sleep when I get home, or have a home to go to. Those are things that a lot of times we don't think about. We don't think about the stresses that kids are involved with and adults are involved with, and even Walt, and even in yourself, Lee. I know from your profession, like you say, you're dealing with people that's doing the job, but when you get called out on the job and there's a person that's either have already attempted to take their life or took their life or whatever, the aftermath, or the PTSD that a firefighter experiences, or anyone in that profession experiences. So that's where I wanted to have a deeper conversation, because it's
Conversation.
real, and I don't believe. I know people know it's real, but they don't believe, or they don't see how real it really is, and that's why I'm asking you to help. Let's drive this thing home a little bit better if we can. So I know that Dr. Jackson made a comment about Medicaid, and if they cut that, and how it's going to affect us all. So do y'all feel that? Do y'all feel that that was a true statement or a valuable statement? And I'll go with you, Dr. CC.
Very much so. Many don't realize the ripple effect and the impact that some of the changes that have already gone forth and that are coming down the pipe. And I think the tragedy is that we don't educate ourselves or others to really understand, okay, if you don't speak up from this perspective, this is the result, or this could be the result. I really applaud her for actually making it very much known. People say, oh, that's Medicaid. That's not me. I'm not on Medicaid. But they don't really understand the undercurrent or the dynamics that once that ripple effect starts, it's going to affect everyone. So in that aspect, you look at, what do we do? When she said contact your congressman, more so than even contacting the congressman, get educated, do your homework. I think that by us not really digging a little deeper into things and having the full knowledge and understanding of what is really affected by each law that is being changed or that has been changed, people made decisions because they didn't do the research to make sure what really is going to be affected.
Right.
And as big as mental health is, and as many people, many Americans that were affected coming out of the pandemic, we're still battling. A lot of people are still battling with those things, and it's not been addressed. So I think overall, if I was to leave with anything, I would say do your homework, do your research to make sure that your voice counts.
Right.
So I appreciate that. And I'm sorry about that for the drink. Dr. Raven, what do you is this something that you're seeing in the school systems, or
This
is
is
it?
so. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I didn't know the impact with Medicaid. I was in the same perspective of I have Cigna, so I don't know how that impacts me,
Yep.
And so I agree to do my homework, and I'm actually sitting here taking a note to do that and to learn more about that and what that means and what does it mean to contact my congressman. And she said that it's plenty of scripts online. So I need to look up the script and get in order. What do I need to say? How do I need to organize it? I'm already thinking forward, thinking of how to help my student leaders at school help me get this word out in the community. Because we're a school that we're a family school, so we partner with the family in our communications, not just it's every student known. We want all the families a part of our school too. So just even thinking about how to get information out to them as well, like, oh, I didn't know that, or I didn't realize that. And so, yeah, didn't know. So I'm happy I was able to be on and get some knowledge.
No, and that's part of it right there. A lot of it, like as Dr. Cece said, and you're saying, and I appreciate you saying it just like you did, Raven. That I didn't know, and a lot of people they don't know. And again, we're not. This show has never, and we will not speak of politics. It's not about politics, and it's not about religion. It is about what's going on in the world right now. And the thing is, even though you might have a certain kind of insurance, the CMS, or that's what is it? That's who runs Medicaid and Medicare and things like that.
Mhm.
When they lose their funding, then any funding that your insurance companies was getting will be lost as well. So it's like,
Right.
so now you're looking at who's they're losing their money. Then that means if your insurance company was getting say to say $1 million from the government, all of a sudden they lose that $1 million, then that changes your numbers. That'll make your numbers go up because now you're going to have to pay more because that $1 million still got to be covered. So, or we're going to have to cut some things out. So we're not going to allow you to have an ambulance ride, or you're not going to get money for an emergency room visit. You're not going to get money if you need to go see a psychologist. You're not going to get money if you need, because we cut those programs out because we got to make up that $1 million that was lost. So a
Wow.
lot of people don't realize that's the ripple effect. It doesn't affect me. Like a lot of people used to say, and it's funny because I used to hear them at work. I don't have Obamacare. I have what they call Affordable Care Act. I don't have Obamacare.
Mhm.
I have the Affordable Care Act. And I'm like,
Same thing.
that's the
Yeah.
same thing. What do you mean? Change the name. It's the same
Yes.
thing. And
Yeah.
because of that, a lot of people they just don't know that. Well, I don't have Medicaid. I don't have Medicare. Yes, you do. Don't ever you have it because it's just a piece of that's what almost the guarantees that if you went there and you didn't have any insurance, that somebody's going to see you because those things are already covered in a sense. And that's where we getting this funding from. And when it's lost, it's lost. That's what helps Walt when he was in the firehouse, go out there and save your life on the streets because they knew somebody else was fitting the bill because all of those programs were in place. They don't even get there when you have a vehicle accident. God forbid anybody have a vehicle accident. They don't ask you for your insurance card before they get you out the car. They go ahead and get you out the car. They treat you. They do everything they can for you, and then they let that be worried about later, who's going to pay for it and all these other things. To a point, I know. Walt, go ahead. I know you can drop it on me.
But here's
But
the sad part, and this speaks to everyone's point. Not much later, because first of all, let me go back. I'm not even gonna have to go out on a limb and say I'm closer to Medicare than anybody on the camera, right? So my conversations with my friends at 61 are now about Social Security and Medicare, not sports and women. Let's start with that. So that's just old guys talk now. That's what we talk about: blood pressures, A1C, and Medicare and Social Security. And it is kind of frightening because what I'm finding out is people who I thought knew don't necessarily know. So, Dr. CC, to your point, information is power. You do have to do your own research, and a lot of this stuff is passed down until it's just passed down and passed down and passed down until people figure out the hard way that they don't have something that they thought they were going to get. As far as an ambulance ride goes, as far as on the street, this is a great conversation because most hospitals have to have doctors come and ride the ambulance. And I've been retired for a while, but I'm still plugged in. So you get hospitals, doctors will come and ride an ambulance just to kind of see what goes on. I'm amazed to see the level of responses from the ER nurse or doctor to the floor nurse or doctor to to the trauma nurse or doctor, because the ER doctor and the trauma doctor is used to dealing with much more confusion and less order. So when you do get a person that's injured, and this includes mental health, it's not the what scares me is the people who don't get the attention because this guy, oh, he's just homeless. Nobody's going to call an ambulance. But here's the thing: everyone has problems. People who have mental health issues also have physical health issues. So a lot of times they'll get to the hospital, and that hospital will. And I think Dr. Jackson said she went to GW, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll get to GW. They'll make sure that you're stabilized, but then they'll ship you right out of there. To another hospital because you don't have insurance. So that's what I said. Not what you're saying is that we'll still get you to the closest hospital, but that has for years has played into who gets treatment when they need treatment, and especially with the mental health piece, right away initially. So you start getting the tale of two cities. You start getting the divide. So you ladies have to deal with that on your end. So I don't know the answer, but I only see it getting worse. I don't see it getting better, and especially when you talk about funding. Uh, and there you go. So, and as far as Dr. Raven, like you said, you got a bunch of younger kids coming into young adulthood who are going to deal with stuff totally different. It's going to be a totally different society, and things will be things that weren't acceptable in my generation. And as far as how you are treated and serviced, how you are presented to the healthcare center or introduced to the healthcare network, it's going to totally change. And that's why it goes back to dealing with knowing how to address people, how to deal with people, even on the street. A police officer on the street is going to deal with you differently if he thinks you're one way or the other, a firefighter, anyone. So I'm just saying all of these things are interconnected. All of these things play in all just like all politics is local, everyone's experience is their experience. And I'm just like, I don't see this thing getting any better without education, without a plan, and without a collective uh, effort. So it's great to see, man. Bill, Jack. This is a great panel because again, I just know my little piece. Everyone has their piece of the pie, and everyone's considerations are much different. So, thank you for this. Thank you.
No, and Walt, I appreciate that, and Dr. Cece, I know you're there, and you're coming in from you come from two worlds on this because you're coming in on the faith side of the town, but then you're also on the literal physical side of it too. So it's like I'm helping you. It's like in two different worlds there because it's the spiritual world and then it's the physical world, and so I know that your it's challenging for you and 100%. And the thing is, because when we look at the tangible, the finances, I don't have coverage, I don't have this, I don't have that. That in itself is stressful. I mean, when people have to make a decision on if they're going to get the medical or keep the money so that they can pay their bills on a job. And that goes back to you, Dr. Raven, because the fact you're teaching young kids that you have to show them where this is going to affect them, like it or not. This is the world you're getting ready to go into. You look at your kids are high school students, so in the next 3 to 4 years, 2 to 3 years, 1 year, depending on what grade they're in, you're going to walk into this, and this is what's going on right now. So that's where we're talking about the education side to it and all. So, Dr. CC, I need your advice. What are you telling me? What are you telling me as a person that's experiencing this? And I'm like, what do I do? What do I do?
It is something new that we've not yet explored or experienced. The things that we're seeing now when it comes to from healthcare to loss of jobs to just the psychological impact of the last 3 to 4 months, it's new, but implementing practical steps and skills that have worked before, we have to put those things in place. And I can't say it enough, to do your research. I have been blessed to learn a little bit more about the opportunities that this AI that is taking over in so many ways allows us to gather information, show us where to go to get the information, present answers that we need, and literally the healthcare field overall is getting solutions from, they have psychiatrists that are using the AI function to deal with their patients. So in this aspect, there are a lot of resources that are available to help us navigate what we've not ever seen happen before or even experienced ourselves. But it's more so about not gatekeeping and sharing the information that you've learned or know or resources. One of the bigger things that I'm doing right now when it comes to the mental health space, if I find out about something that's working, that hits a larger group, because the work that I do puts me in contact with different cultures and different communities of people. So if I find a resource that can help a particular culture or community, I'm sharing that. I'm putting it on social media platforms. I'm hosting a Zoom call with leaders that can get it out to their community. As Dr. Raven shared, okay, this is something I'm going to take back to my workspace and place and make sure it's shared out. I think that if we start to approach the information that we're gaining knowledge of in our spaces, in from the churches to the workplace, in our communities, that it would help us be able to navigate all that we're experiencing right now.
Okay. I mean, this it's a lot. So now I got one for you. I'm gonna throw this out here because you mentioned it. And how how trustworthy is AI? And I only throw that out there because of the fact that, I mean, there was a time when we were saying everything, we just Googled it. Let's just Google it. And then after some changes that Google made, then I just lost faith in Google. I'm just gonna be straight up and honest. I lost faith in Google. And then we had Wikipedia. But I can go in there and change Wikipedia. I can make it say whatever I wanted to say. Right. So now because we are using, and I see a lot of people. I mean, the jobs are promoting it so much with AI. But it's funny. I don't even go. But like I said, we're not getting it. But I think it's the Secretary of Education. Education Secretary was doing a interview, and instead of saying AI, she kept saying A1 because she was thinking. So I'm like, so now we're in the steak sauce now. So I'm like, this is the person who's in charge of education. But that's a shame. But we're not going to go there because it's not A1. But I'm just saying, well, and we can get there. But at the same time, it was just a funny thing.
Who says there has to be the standard that she has to know that?
No, you're right. No, I mean, there is not, and that's where.
Right,
but that's where I'm at. So who's putting the information in AI for us to? I mean, where's they gathering this from? Because I don't care. I mean, I know it's a computer program and it's searching and doing this, but it's like, where are they getting it? And do we? I guess that's where I'm at, and that's you, Dr. Raven and Dr. CC and Walt. Do you check it before you share it? Do you have to confirm it? Right, there you go.
Absolutely.
Because we learned how to think. But if you grow up not learning how to think, anything you see, you believe. You'll go on shares, likes, and views. So what concerns me is there's nothing inherently wrong with AI. No, just like there's nothing inherently wrong with fire. I mean, fire can cook your food, it can, or it can burn your house down. A gun is a tool, or it can kill you. AI, there are people out there who are using AI to work against us, to put us to put us asleep. And when I say us, the public, the general public, to put you asleep. So, as long as everything's good and everybody's happy and I'm having a good time and life's not too tough, people tend to go with that. And that's the scary part. And what you're saying about Google is 100% right. And I mean, again, I'm kind of glad what's going on in the world is going on in the world without getting too specific, because People need a wake up call. People need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. People need to feel like, oh, okay, this thing is real. Because again, and this is generational, this is like, really? I'm surprised that everybody is surprised that we're here. Like, where do you think you was going to end up with all that we've done over the last 61 years I've been living? At what point did you think that it wasn't going to come to this? At no point did I didn't think it would come this quick. I didn't think it would come from where it's coming from, but I'm not surprised. I'm
Mm.
really not. I mean, and this is where we are. And with the healthcare, most people are a lot of people are using the emergency room as their primary care physicians. And then hopefully they get plugged into a Dr. CC. Am I right, Dr. CC?
Yeah.
I mean, because and then you go with the churches. The churches, you know, they they live in the real world too. They need donations and money and people to give. So I mean, it's a trickle down effect. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's like it doesn't happen in a vacuum. When you step into the church, you know, with your hat on your head, which shouldn't be the case, but in today's world, I mean, you can put your hat on no problem. You ought to be comfortable in the church. But you know, there's churches right now that won't even let you come in there if you don't show them your W-2, and that's real, and that's happening right here in this town.
Yeah. Well,
So I
I
mean,
do
it's
know
just
that.
like it's just back to what you guys are saying. It's just it's bigger than one thing. It's going to take all of us. But when you put people on their heels, and I'm just talking about the general public here, and you put people in fight or flight mode, and there's three of them: it's fight, flight, and the worst one is freeze, where you do nothing. You know, this is what you get. So, we need the basics information, Dr. CC, just like you said, Dr. Raven, what you're doing, the basics. There are things that we know that our grandparents and great parents, great grandparents, and great grandparents didn't know, and they survived.
Yeah.
And then you're telling me that we are falling apart as a nation on what this today's time? We're all falling apart on. I mean, come on, man. I mean, life is this is where we are,
Yeah.
and it sounds kind of harsh, but that's where we are. So you ladies have your hands full for sure. You know, I mean, I, I salute you because this is where we are, and I mean it's going to get worse before it gets better, and
Yeah.
people are going to have to understand if you don't do anything. And when I say anything, what you can control in your life in your day, start with that. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Start with
Mm.
Yeah.
control in your day. You know, if you sit there and scroll all day, watch the news all day, and get one side of that, you're going to be positioned to be indoctrinated to whatever your information is coming from. Because
Yeah.
if you haven't learned how to challenge yourself, if you haven't learned how to find two or three sources like we had to do, right? This will sound like an old
Cite the source.
at the risk of
Yeah.
sounding like an old guy,
Yeah.
and then you get stories where people are just reporting and on clips that they got from somebody else. And we all know that lies travel much faster than the truth,
Well,
but we
and
all
that.
also know that the truth at the end of the day will stand the test of time. But
Right.
the problem is, how much time do we have before we get the truth? Because the
No,
lie goes around the world quicker than the truth before the truth can even get out of bed.
and that is true, and we do a lot of we get a lot of our information from social media.
Yeah.
So watching a TikTok or Instagram video or Facebook post or whatever, and that's where we get a lot of our info. And not saying all of it is wrong, but that you need do your research, especially before you share it with someone else.
That's right.
Definitely make sure that it's valuable. But there was a question I did want before we go. So it says on the mental health topic, what can an average person do in the workplace, classroom, etc., to help someone without overstepping their boundaries of a professional. So it's like someone's dealing with mental health issues. Is it something that we could do, the average person that doesn't have doctor in front of their name, wasn't trained to do it? Is there something that we can do um, uh, to help that person without overstepping? And I'm gonna go with you, Dr. CC, then you, Dr. Raven, and then even Walt, if you got some advice, we throw that in there. So, Dr. CC.
Well, I can say from my own personal perspective and lived experience, before I became a mental health advocate, I came out of the law enforcement profession, and I was always an observer. So if I saw something that looked out of place, off, I'm looking into it, trying to find that undercurrent of how I can interject and say, is everything okay? And then having some level of resource to direct them to. So I will say the answer to that is making sure that you are sharing resources with people that can be valuable. If it's on the job, then before you even ask the question, are you okay or is everything all right? Or step in to say anything, have some level of solution to offer. And that's the way I've always approached in getting to the place now where I advocate. I make sure if I'm going to step into a space of being concerned or put myself in that person's world, I got 2 or 3 resources that I'm gonna share with them because I've observed them going through some things. And here I am with a solution that could possibly help them navigate what they're going through.
No, good answer. Good answer. Thank you, Dr.
Yeah,
Raven.
I completely agree. From an educator's lens, the same questioning: Are you okay? Is there anything I can help you with? And me specifically, I'm a dean of students. That doesn't mean I necessarily know how to have the conversations that are revolving around the mental health. It could be something that's just out of my caliber. So that's when I say, okay, I know that you want to, and I've had this instance where students feel comfortable with me and they want to talk with me, but I do not have the skill set to go and dive deeper into what you want to talk about. But what I can do is I can expose you to the different counselors we do have in the building, and based on my personality, who has a similar personality to me, because you're opening up to me, I can introduce you to them so you can go express and you can get the help that you need. And I've had to do that on different instances and it's been successful. I have to be honest. If I can't give you what you need, then we're just gonna be, Dr. Cece, we're gonna
Now
just be,
you're not gonna be able to help them,
I'm not
right?
gonna be able to help you.
Yeah.
So just being honest too, and being say, how can I help you? Okay, you need someone to talk to, or you need housing. Let me take you to the
Mhm.
person that job is directly related to that, and they can
Mm.
help you get what you need.
No, I appreciate that. Walt, anything to add to that?
So I can only speak on my experience.
Right.
A person calls 911, they're having an emergency. It may not be important to you. This is my speech to recruits, but this is their emergency. So we're not here to judge. We're not here to look down on people and how can they live like this, and I mean the whole 9 yards. But here's one thing I do know: people can sense when you're not sincere. People sense that, right? So when you show up to someone's house, and I have this conversation with guys, and I live in D.C., so I've had this conversation with people who work for the department I work for, who may not live in the city. So they look, and they're coming from a whole different environment, and they looking at it like I'm coming to get a paycheck and I'm going, but I live here. You understand? So my thing is this, and I always use this example: you see a person on the ground, you're driving down the street, and there's a person on the ground. The fire department is waiting on the ambulance to get there. We're all standing around with our hands in our pockets. But you driving down the street, that just is not a good look. That's not a good look. Okay, now it may be the best place for them to be on the ground so they don't hurt themselves. Now we could be telling them, hey man, when you get out of here, I'm going to introduce you to my sister. I want you to marry her. I think she's nice. I think you'll like her. But what people see, even the people who are friends of this person, they see people who don't care. You understand? So I still can't get past that we think that, I mean, we all are this close to being and sitting on somebody's couch, correct?
Mm-hmm.
if not closer. You
Come
know what I
on.
mean? So all I'm saying is what we resist only persists. So whatever your issue is, if you think you don't have an issue, and I'll say this to anybody, if you think you don't have an issue, that's your issue. You understand? So whatever comes your way, you have to address it. Because if you walk to your mess, whatever your mess is, you can deal with it. But if your mess comes to you, it'll never leave you. And that's where I just see. So I just think we got people saying, well, this guy's on it, hey man, I'm gonna give you $1, but make sure you go get something to eat instead of going to get something to drink. But guess what? The guy has to eat every day. He has to eat every day. So at that point, you just give him $1 or 50 cents or whatever you give him, and you just pray that that he or she does what they need to do with it. I mean, so again, we just make judgment calls for people, and like I said, I get them at before the ambulance gets there, before the police get there. I mean, I live in the city. I live in the inner city. So I'm walking my dogs. I see people every day. Hey man, what's going on? I see kids cutting up. Hey, what are you doing? What's happening? What's your plan? And sometimes people don't even ask people these questions because we're too busy. We're in our thing in our car on our phone and we're gone. So I'm just saying. So people just need to, again, my opinion, learn how to respect people. Just be kind to people, and it starts there. And you will be surprised how people will respond in kind. If you walk in for customer service and somebody gives you a whole bunch of confusion, how are you going to respond to that? If you walk into your favorite restaurant, your favorite store, and somebody has an attitude, how are you going to respond to that? So how do you think people are going to respond to us if we don't treat them, open ourselves up, and be kind from the beginning? I mean, I just and that's back to my first statement. I think socially we are all in a silo now, and we just don't interact. Walking into a church, you walk into the church. I mean, some churches I walk into is just cold. It's just cold because you are the outsider. So I mean, I see it. So I'm just saying, like we keep trying to make it this level, but it's right here. It's basic stuff. It's basic golden rule stuff, in my opinion, and that's where we are. And Jack, man, we had this conversation all the time, and I mean, it's just like we keep trying to make it bigger than what it is. I mean, it's just we are not fundamentally sound as a nation right now. I think it's the fundamental that we get us through this.
Yeah, and I'm not going to disagree with that, and I thank you all for being there. And my opinion to that question that went out there, and I just want to share that. Especially in the workplace, most jobs there is a human resources, and just human resources, not just the people that pay your check and discipline you and all. There are other programs. I know the job I work for, we have a EAP, what is Employee Assistance Program. So there are programs that's designed for help. Like that, if you see it, like you say, and as Dr. Cece said, even Raven saying, and Walt saying it, we're all saying the same thing. Come to that person. You don't have to overstep your bounds. You don't have to be that person that treat them, but let them know that there are some helps out there, and that you are genuinely concerned and willing to help them get to where they need to go to get their help. And I think right there that would help a lot. But we are over, so we're over our time today. And I appreciate Dr. Raven and Dr. Cece for being on here. Dr. Jackson, I know she had to go, and then my man Walt, who needs a name. So if y'all can find a name for Walt, help Walt get a name. Put that down in the chat.
Man, no, I haven't earned a name
the
yet.
Man with no name. There it is.
Yeah.
But I thank y'all all for being on here. I knew I had Dr. Jackson. I knew when she was coming, and I thought that this would be definitely a special episode, having all you on because of your professions, because of your backgrounds, and because of your experiences. So I thank you for helping me hit that mark that I was trying to achieve with this show. You have definitely been a blessing to me, each and every one of you. You have a place in my heart. So, and I thank you for answering the call when I reached out to you. So with that being said, all of those who are watching out there today, we thank you for being with us during the Iron Sharpening Iron show and the after show. And we're going to ask you to stay blessed. And until we meet again, stay blessed. Good night, and talk to you all later.
Okay, Dr. CC, Dr. Raven.
Thank you.
All right, good night. Thank you.
Night.
All right. Take care.
All right, see you.